Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming along to an open webinar and co-production learning event hosted by Fulfilling Lives Islington and Camden, or we'll refer to us as FLIC throughout the session. We only have an hour together today, so we are going to get started. I'm sure some people will be joining us over the next couple of minutes, but you'll be hearing lots from me. My name is Bex and I'm FLIC's co-production lead, and you'll also get to hear a bit from our FLIC co-production group as well. So please start to introduce yourself in the chat box while people start coming in to the webinar. But I do want to just give a little bit of background before we get started. So this is an open webinar, which is part of Camden's regular co-production network. And we're a bi-monthly network for people interested in, there we go. People who are interested in or who are already working co-productively and who want to share and hear different approaches to co-production, problem solve and support each other to work in this way. But Camden Co-Production Network have generously let FLIC take over for a one-off event. So we've got lots of people from outside of Camden joining us today as well. We can't actually see each other and we won't get to meet each other today properly. So please introduce yourselves in the chat box, tell us where you're logging in from, where you work, a bit about why you're here, and try and connect with each other that way. And we've already seen some people introducing themselves, so thank you very much for coming along. You'll also see a Q&A chat box, so any questions you have for us throughout the whole session and you'd like for us to address during the Q&A, please add them in the Q&A chat box and they'll be monitored and saved ready for the Q&A. So what are we actually going to do today? Today's agenda, we're going to start by looking at what we've done at FLIC in terms of co-production. We'll then get to hear a poem by one of our own co-producers. I'll then do a run through of FLIC's co-production toolkit and how to use that. And then we'll get to see a preview of the FLIC co-production group film. And then hopefully we'll have time to squeeze in a Q&A at the end as well. Okay, so before we start, although this session won't be interactive, we would love to know what everyone who's joined this webinar already knows about co-production, and to acknowledge that we might be at very, very different stages of our journeys with working in this way, or even in getting involved in co-production as well. So if you could use the chat box to write either A, B, C or D in relation to which statement you think best sums up where you're at in terms of co-production. So you can write A if you understand a lot and you've got some tools to put it into practice. Maybe you're at B, so you understand a little. You might understand the concepts, but would like a bit more support to put it into practice. Or maybe you're at C, so a little less. You might still be learning about it and getting your head around it and not sure how to get started. Or maybe you're at D, so you don't know much at all and you're just starting to learn about it. So yeah, you can put A, B, C or D in the chat box. Okay, so some between A, B and C. B and C. Okay, amazing. So there's a real variety. Some of us have got no idea, so we're just starting to learn. Some of us fairly confident and have some tools as well. And although that wasn't there to trick you out, I'm not sure that I would say FLIC always feel like we're at the top or at level A, that we understand everything and know exactly how to do this. We might get our heads around something and then a new challenge or learning curve comes along, which might bring us down to a B or a C. So as one of our co-producers always says, it's a constant learning process. And with that, I doubt after an hour-long session, you'll know exactly how to do co-production and that we'll be able to give you all of the answers. But our aim for today is for us to inspire you to give it a go, to leave you with some tools that you can adapt to your own settings and start using, and to believe in the idea and to leave with some reflections and questions that maybe challenge the way that you're working now and encourage you to apply co-production to what you do. So who are we? Who is FLIC? For those of you who don't know us, we're an 8-year lottery funded learning programme that closes this year in May 2022. And we were designed to support people experiencing multiple disadvantage. And one of our big aims was to effect systems change to improve the experience and outcomes for people accessing services. But for us, we want to co-produce this work and we want to make sure we work alongside people with lived experience to influence the systems change, because we believe that people who have experience of a problem should be involved in creating the solutions to those issues. So for us, we want to work alongside people experiencing multiple disadvantage to affect systems change. And we try and bring together people both delivering, volunteering, and being supported by services to collaborate and design solutions together. And for us, we have a particular focus on multiple disadvantage, because we know that local services sometimes fail to provide the appropriate support for people facing these challenges. And that might mean that people experiencing multiple disadvantage often access emergency services rather than planned services. So we believe if we can genuinely listen to and understand issues through the lenses of people actually experiencing those challenges, then maybe we can start to develop a system of support that does work for people experiencing multiple disadvantage. But we also recognise that co-production isn't just about designing solutions, solving problems and challenging assumptions about what works, but being involved in co-production is an important part of people's recovery and rediscovery. And I think this quote really sums that up, that one of the core experiences of psychological trauma are disempowerment and disconnection from others, and that one of the guiding principles of recovery is to restore that power and control to the survivor. So sharing power through co-production and offering opportunities for people to have more voice, choice and control over their own care and in influencing how services and the system works can be a really healing experience. And one of our FLIC co-production group members recently said that it's their form of self-care. We are now going to get to hear from one of FLIC's co-production group members, Henrik, who is going to share a poem he's written about his experiences of being part of the group. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And when you're ready, Henrik, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I wrote a poem. I mean, I'm very passionate about co-production, and I wrote a poem called Together, which sort of reflects how I feel about co-production. So here we go. Enjoy, please. As a crew, we are one. As a crew, we are whole. To my crew, I say thank you. We have lived, we have experience, we have trust. We are equal, the foundation is flat. We sat around a table and agreed to all that. The idea is simple, it's how we operate. We iron out the creases and discuss it to pieces, lows and lows to debate. We've all set a standard, an agreed way to work. The title co-production is the name of our work. So please hear me out. Please pay attention, it's free. Not to co-produce, there is no excuse. From now on, we are one, together, you all and me. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, Henrik. I'm actually sitting in the room with two of our other co-production group members as well. So if you heard the clap, that was from them. Yeah, thank you so much, Henrik. I think we'd probably all agree that that sums up the ethos of what we do and what we're trying to create by doing co-production as well. I'm just going to share my screen again. And yeah, so I hope that inspired you to continue or to start working in this way. But you might also be wondering what we've actually done at FLIC in terms of co-production. So at FLIC, we have a really strong co-production group, and each member of that group brings different perspectives, experiences, visions, personalities, and who are involved in very different ways and contribute different things as well. But ultimately, we are a group of people who want to use their lived experiences to create change, improve lives of other people, and represent the voice of multiple disadvantage. So as part of the core FLIC co-production group, members can be involved in different systems change and influencing opportunities. And that's involved working with commissioners, being part of our trauma-informed network, and co-designing tools and resources as part of FLIC's work to influence local systems change. As part of the group, we also do regular learning and training workshops. And we've had everything from systems change training, negotiation, decision-making, critical thinking, active listening, group dynamics, and public speaking. So training and learning is a really important part of what we do. And obviously a really essential part of co-production is rewarding and recognizing people's time and expertise that they are contributing. So we can offer vouchers for one-off events or work with the council. And we also have personal development budgets for our regular co-production group members. And that's something they can use to buy things that will support their involvement. So people have bought everything from a laptop, stationery to a mobile phone as well. So it was very, very difficult to sum up all of the different activities and what's been involved in our commissioning, trauma-informed network and systems change work. But I wanted to share some highlights. So some of our FLIC co-production group members have been involved in Camden and Islington's trauma-informed network. And part of that, they've created and analysed surveys, been part of film screening discussions and designed activities on power for the network. The group have also been working to co-produce redesigning assessments and creating strength-based and person-centred assessments. They've started to co-design self-advocacy tools for people experiencing multiple disadvantage. And they've also taken part in a lived experience panel to inform decision-making for a tendering process with Camden's adult housing pathway commissioners. So I could talk for a very, very long time about what all of these different things have involved. But here are some images of different workshops, activities, meetings, sessions and conversations that we've had. And I hope that goes some way to demonstrate what's been a complex journey and process with lots of learning, negotiation and deliberation. So if you're sitting in this webinar wondering about getting started or what it looks like in practice or building on what you currently do, hopefully this is inspiration enough to get started. Having said that, a feeling that I definitely had when I first started to work in this way, and I know that was felt by colleagues and fellow co-producers, is that I believed in co-production. I'd heard of lots of different examples. I knew co-production worked and is essential to providing support that people need and want, but what actually goes on and how might it actually work in practice? And this is definitely summed up here by a quote from a FLIC stakeholder. So someone who was involved in a FLIC co-production evaluation this year, which we'll also share in the chat box, who said they'd like to get to grips with what it actually means tangibly. And part of my role within FLIC has been to support others across the system to do co-production. And when we started thinking about working in this way at FLIC, we found lots of guides, blogs, case studies about co-production, but I noticed people looking for more practical tools that they could use to actually get started and would help with the doing rather than just understanding the theory or the concept. But it's a difficult one because there are a lot of unknowns within co-production, and it does require everyone to tolerate some level of uncertainty, and you don't know what will come out of it when you bring lots of different people and minds and perspectives together. So maybe it's not always possible to be armed with all the tools and templates and guides that will eliminate this. But one of the key things we have learned at FLIC in the time we've tried and committed to doing co-production is you have to want to work in this way. It is a values-led way of working. And if you want to do it, the rest will follow. But it is always worth having some tools up your sleeve to facilitate the process of bringing people together, maybe for the first time. So that's what we hope the FLIC co-production toolkit, which I'm now going to run through with you, and you'll get a copy of after the webinar. That's what we hope the FLIC co-production toolkit will provide. So the toolkit is something that we've designed at FLIC, and it is designed to be used however you would like. So within your team, through training, one-to-one, individually on your own, but it genuinely is designed to be used however fits in your different settings. And part one, so it's separated into two parts. And part one includes discussion activities, which are designed to help facilitate learning and conversations around co-production, identify places to start and possible barriers, develop shared understandings and visions and approaches within your specific settings. And part one also includes different engagement methods and co-production facilitation tools and techniques. So you could use these activities to support with your learning in your teams and your settings, and build your approach to co-production alongside the people you work with, volunteer, and who also access your support services. Part two includes checklists and questions that we've learned are important to consider before planning any kind of more specific co-production projects or bits of work. So each section is separated into some key areas which we've learned at FLIC need proper consideration if you're wanting to do co-production meaningfully and give people the opportunity to genuinely influence and have decision-making responsibilities. So the first part of the toolkit looks at your motivations and purpose. So working co-productively might involve a shift in the way you currently work, and it might challenge current understandings of what works and what people need. So to take on this requires the support of everyone, and it's important you're working under the same shared understandings of co-production. Next, the toolkit looks at values. So as I've said, it's a values-led way of working, requiring organizational cultural change to be meaningful and effective. So this part of the toolkit encourages you to ask, how do your current ways of working reflect the values underpinning co-production, and how much do they allow for this way of working? The toolkit then looks at sharing power, which is essential to collaborating and supporting people who might otherwise be passive recipients of a service to then be actively involved in decision-making. Then the toolkit looks at methods. So we know that co-production isn't just about getting people in a room and telling stories or experiences. It involves applying different methods to support people to express ideas and come up with ideas in a constructive and safe environment. And it's about supporting people who might not normally work together to build relationships and collaborate. It then looks at supporting people to be involved, because we might be asking people to be involved in the process of designing, delivering, or even evaluating services, which could be challenging and complicated. And we might jump to assumptions that people experiencing multiple disadvantage can't take on these responsibilities or processes. But we also know that people experiencing these challenges have faced exclusion when accessing services. So co-producing alongside people should also aim not to exclude, but to find ways to work differently and involve anyone who wants to take part and contribute towards influencing change in their own way. And then it looks at recruitment and engagement, because it does take time to properly involve people and make sure any opportunity for co-production is accessible, inclusive, and safe. And finally, it looks at reward and recognition, because if we are aiming to work equally and people are contributing their time and expertise, this should be properly rewarded. So there are lots of activities, templates, and checklists to be used and adapted to your different settings. And I won't get to run through every single one of these sections in the time we've got, but we wanted to try and bring the toolkit to life. So to do this, I'm going to run through some different scenarios based on real life experiences and suggest and highlight which sections of the toolkit could be useful for these different situations. So if you imagine scenario 1, that you work in a day centre that supports people experiencing homelessness. And a lot of the people you support and who attend the day centre have ideas about changes and improvements. There's a lot of conversations and you want to start doing co-production, but have no idea how or where to start. So a useful section of the toolkit could be section 1B, which includes checklists around motivations and purpose. So here are some snapshots of the toolkit. And in this activity, you'll explore how to develop your purpose. So what it is you want to try and co-produce, which is ideally everything, but this section will help you to think about key priority areas for co-production, where to start, and what you could try out if this way of working is completely new. So in activity 3, you can explore all the areas within your service, team, organization, and the different policies, decisions, processes, and activities that might be involved in the day-to-day delivery or design of services. And then explore which of those areas should be influenced by people with lived experience and which maybe already are, and which of those areas feels realistic to co-produce, and what could you try out now, but maybe what feels a little bit difficult, but could be more of a long-term goal. So scenario 2, I want you to imagine you've arranged a workshop with people living in supported accommodation to review the services assessment process. You've tried running resident forums before, but open discussions don't seem to work, and participants have said that they were stressful and overwhelming. So a part of the toolkit that might be useful for this is section 1A, which covers different methods and creative tools. So methods would be helpful in this scenario as it contains different case studies and methods for collaboration rather than just sitting and talking in a group and just openly having discussions. So there's lots of different case studies, from legislative theatre, appreciative inquiry to peer research, and you can read and reflect on these different case studies as a team and think about which one might work for you. The toolkit also contains some facilitation tools that we've tried out at FLIC, which have helped us to think creatively to solve problems. And you can see here an example of one of these tools called reverse brainstorming or reverse thinking, which is always very popular. But there's a whole list of different techniques in the toolkit that you can try out. Okay, so section or scenario 3. If you imagine you are supporting people with lived experience of accessing community mental health services to work alongside commissioners and design a new service. So commissioners already have some ideas for what support the service needs to deliver. However, you want to make sure people with lived experience who are involved have equal opportunity to influence and collaborate on designing the service. So a useful section of the toolkit for this scenario might be section 2G, which includes a power reflection checklist. And in this section, it includes different areas and possible situations where power might be shared, to ensure that you can collaborate equally and value all types of expertise. And here's a snapshot of some of those questions, which includes reflecting on different roles, responsibilities, and expectations. So who is doing what and how are those tasks shared? Having a shared purpose and way of working. So is everyone working under a shared understanding of what you're working towards and want to achieve, and what pace are you working at? And outcomes and decisions. So who is involved in any final decision making, and are there any predetermined or desired outcomes that need to be addressed? And there's a lot more questions in the power reflection checklist as well. And the final scenario, so I want you to imagine you're working with someone who is interested in getting involved in a co-production project. They missed the first few workshops, and it's difficult to know if they'll be well enough to attend every workshop, but they really, really want to be involved. So a section in the toolkit that would be useful here is section 1F, so supporting people experiencing multiple disadvantage to get involved. And in this section, we have the co-produced recovery river, which was designed by FLIC's co-production group and peer mentor coordinator, and shows the different stages that a person might be at in their recovery, and being in a position to use and contribute their lived experience to contribute to change and influence how services work. For example, we might have someone at the trickle stage where they are curious about finding opportunities to grow and maybe develop a routine and use their lived experience to affect change. And then the toolkit shares some scenarios and examples of what we've tried at FLIC to ensure everybody's involvement at whatever stage of the recovery river or journey they might be at, to ensure they feel safe, included, and supported. For example, some adjustments might include meeting one-to-one, attending with a peer mentor, or running shorter and more interactive workshops and working in person. So there's obviously a lot more in the toolkit, and you will be sent a copy after the webinar. So please do share this with others. But the main thing to take away about the toolkit is that you can pick and choose which activities are best suited to your co-production needs and what you're trying to currently do, or what you actually want to learn or need to learn. So that is enough from me. It's now time to hear from our co-production group themselves, and we'll be watching a short film that is still slightly a work in progress. So this is a bit of a preview of a film that we've been working on. And after the film, we'll get to do the Q&A. So as I can see, some of you have already started to ask questions, but as you're watching the film, please add any questions into the Q&A chat box as well. So in making a film, we took the opportunity to reflect on our experiences and learnings from working together in the FLIC co-production group. And just to say that not everyone involved in the co-production group is in the film or are with us today in the webinar. So we are missing some key players and some key voices as well. So just want to give a shout out to them, and that they've played just as an important role. But we are going to hear from 5 of our amazing members. And yeah, I'm going to press play. it felt completely unknown, uncertain. I didn't know how it was going to work out, if anyone would come.
I got the word, co-production, but didn't understand how it what it meant in this context.
Yeah, no, similarly, yeah, I was actually quite intrigued and, excited, try not to be anxious, more excited about, the possibilities.
Same here, really. I was unsure, wondering how I could help.
Yeah, excited, curious, wondering again, what could I bring to the group?
I remember the first meeting. Yeah, I felt a little bit, oh, who's going to be there? But yeah, it was great.
My confidence is built so much. I couldn't believe 3 years ago I could even sit and talk to anybody without a bottle of whiskey in my hand at least.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that. I'd have to always be high. I wouldn't be interested in doing anything like this. And doing that, I was surprised, how much I have got upstairs.
I personally have got a background in substance abuse, and I did for the majority of my adult life. Sometimes I still feel, I wasted so much time. I was helped by a lot of these services, and this is why I do what I do, because my lived experience will help somebody else.
Same thing, like drug addiction for a lot of my life. Got helped, I had a mental breakdown 5 years ago, was helped again, and it's nice to, it's good to give back,
Being able to have an opinion on all that there was to me eye-opening, really. So, and to be heard and get validated.
To be honest, I didn't know something called lived experience actually existed. It's magnificent, and that's really what I want, and that would give me a real sense of achievement with it.
I really enjoyed the tendering process, working on a really high level with commissioners.
Me, same, like the commissioning. I learned a lot. I mean, I ain't good with big words, but I've learned what procurement meant,
I think when I was doing the commissioning, I just asked a curious question, is why did you involve us? And I was told basically that no amount of training that they received or had would ever fulfill what lived experience would have or could give. And I thought, oh, cool.
Yeah, I saw one of the ladies on the news. So I was like, oh yeah, she was just pitching something to me, like a sort of Dragon's Den style, and now she's on the news. So like what you were saying, Lawrence, it's no hierarchy.
The passport, or the idea of having a simple way of explaining who you are, what your condition is, what your medication is, all of the very basic stuff.
I enjoyed the whole process, but also I really actually enjoyed our project on developing the service user passport, because I've been advocating for this for quite a few years.
It's such a simple thing, and that's what used to annoy me. You keep repeating yourself, and you just get frustrated, and you just want to, run out of the building.
And I guess part of being in the co-production group is creating a community, creating a group, but we've worked together to design solutions to problems in the system, and the passport has been one of those things.
But it was nice having the debate about it, and then all us coming to a decision about it, and then, listening to all the difference of opinions from everyone. That's what's so good about it, and being part of co-production, that brings it out in everyone, I think.
I mean, I learnt how important it is to work with people, actually, to listen to people and to learn from people.
Being part of the group is a highlight, and I know that sounds so cheesy, but it really is. I just feel like this particular group has an unsaid level of respect for each other without judgments,
I think for me, what actually helped me most of the way, and still does, is nobody's perfect. Yeah, and it's okay to make mistakes.
Yeah, as we have the group agreement, but it also have this feeling of organic feel. How do I say? Chemistry, yes.
When we first started, we were all called experts by lived experience. And I actually hated that, because I thought I'm an expert at nothing. you know, and then to have a conversation about that and then just realize, oh, we're co-producers. It's okay, I can work with that, and it's just made it easier.
That's a really good point, because we might work with like commissioners, we might work with people who run services, work in services, volunteer, whatever, and sometimes we will have to introduce ourselves in a meeting or in a workshop.
I think with time and all the training and practice we've had, we've embodied it, so it feels, you know, it's not, we don't hesitate to say it now, it's because we've embodied it, you know. Yeah. One thing I actually quite like about the group as well is, you know, the varied, you know, learning resources that we do have as well. So we can, the other week we were managing anxiety, and we can be doing something with a guest speaker about, you know, maybe some psychology or something like that, you know. So it's we learn a lot about learning.
Yeah, so the training we've had this year, so we've had decision making, negotiation, managing anxiety. What was the other one?
Group dynamics.
Group dynamics. Yeah.
Yeah.
That all came from you guys, so what you've said you need, but that comes along the process. So we could have had this training 6 months ago, but maybe it wouldn't have been the right time, but we had it now. And obviously the group's sort of coming to an end, but that's been what you've said you've needed based on your experiences.
For me, it's like being able to listen actively, like active listening, being part of the group and commissioning and that, like it's helped me grow as a person, really.
Yeah, getting my voice, making decisions with people, learning and unlearning as well. You know, it was eye-opening as well.
We're not the elite, we are just a group, committed members of a co-production, but our role in a way is to represent so many other people.
Inclusion is very important, but some people might not be quite ready.
Maybe this setup isn't
Conducive.
appropriate for everybody. Maybe this isn't where everybody wants to work and how everybody wants to work. So yeah, how would you support someone to be involved in co-production?
We can just open the group for a consultation. People can just be invited for one-off event, just communicating directly with service users, ask them what they need.
People just can approach it however they want, just very, you know, just by listening or whatever. Or you can be as involved as you like. You've got to have some basic structure, if you like. The rest will figure itself out.
Perhaps ultimately the idea of a co-production is full autonomy of the group, I see. But it takes time, it takes training, it takes structure designed by the co-production group. They might be consulted by staff members.
But not run by.
But not run by.
Yeah.
For me, it seems like a problem-solving service anyway, and problems will always arise. And so it's going to evolve and constantly going to be needed. You know.
I'll just put this out there. I think it's at this point, co-production is a need.
And it's not easy to do that, but like you said before, it's criminal to not. It feels criminal to not do it. It's so obvious to work in this way and to work alongside people with lived experience to design and deliver support to people. So why should it not be funded? You know, it should be a priority. That's how I feel after working with you guys. That it should be a priority.
In fact, I'm just confident. I'm extremely confident. It's not a case of if, but when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that sooner or later, eventually a passion evolves. You know, because it's become passionate to me. I just love doing it.
There's nothing that they're like itching to say.
Too much. You see, I have to
have
edit myself. I have a talk all year, so I have to say no.
I feel like they're like...
I'm very aware.
Okay, thank you everyone. The final version of the film will be sent after this event, along with the toolkit and FLIC's evaluation report on co-production. But we now want to give our co-production group members, and I guess myself, a chance to answer any questions that you've been hopefully typing in the chat box throughout the session. And again, if there's any that come up during the Q&A, please continue to add those into the chat box. But I'm going to hand it over to Michael, who facilitates the Camden Co-Production Network, and he's going to be asking us some questions. And on the panel, we've got Henrik, who read us that amazing poem earlier and is one of our co-producers and Fuller. And we've also got Rob and Lawrence with us today in the office. We're going to scoot down and be able to answer some questions as well.
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Michael Bond. I work in Camden Council's Participation and Partnerships team. And as Bex said, we have worked, I suppose, over the last 20 months on establishing the Camden Co-Production Network. And just want to thank Bex and actually all of you co-producers, because I think so far it's been a brilliant webinar, and lots to hear about and lots to understand and lots to learn about as well. So I'm probably going to start with an easy one then for Fuller, Rob, Lawrence and Henrik, which is, I suppose, what would you take away from this process? The question was, could you give us maybe 3 examples of the key learning for you? So I don't know who wants to kick off on that one. Fuller, any thoughts on that one?
You are on mute, by the way, both Henrik and Fuller.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I can kick off. So, I mean, what I've taken away from this, that was a question, isn't it? For me, I think it's a very productive and inclusive way of working. And I think it is a very good way for a service who's not using co-production at the moment, or working with people with lived experience and co-producing on a sort of flat level. It's a good way of putting for that service to actually learn how they can move, how they can operate, because ultimately, you learn on both sides, user and sorry, co-producer and service. So, I think it's a very good way of actually putting together a very needed service, I think, and one that's understood by both sides rather than, by co-producing, if that makes all sense. So,
anyone else like to? Actually, Henrik, we're supposed to just hear. What are you? Was another question that came in. We can ask Bex that one as well. Was what are you most proud of? What throughout this process? What have you been most proud of?
My crew.
Oh right, okay, brilliant.
I mean, 100%, because
it's like a little family. Basically, we've all come together and we all understand each other, and it's absolutely a wonderful feeling. Just to be able to talk and sort of, we know about each other and we relate to each other. We're all on the same page. It's just lovely.
Yeah. So I echo that as well. It's like, how we all come together and, we just get on so well together. It's brought us all together and made us more confident about things, I suppose, as well. Yeah, really, it's done me the world of good doing it. I really enjoyed it.
Do you follow? What about you? What about proud thing, or maybe some key learning from the process?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Pretty much everything about it. But key learning takeaways for me personally was just communication. Because we work at various levels in production, and you have to, be able to communicate with whatever it is, task, work. You have to be able to communicate wherever you go and convey our lived experience across. So I particularly enjoyed training on communication, group dynamics, and learning to learn. And then, that then translates into, being effective in what we did do.
And I was just going to say then, for another question that's come in is, I suppose, if somebody was keen to start co-production, it's quite clear from the way that your group have gelled and worked together and worked with Bex, and that's really worked. But somebody who wants to do co-production but isn't really clear, where would you sort of advise them to start?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's you've got to be open-minded. Yeah. You've got to be ready to you've got to be open-minded. This is potentially a very different way of working to what someone might be used to. So I think that's a good place to start. Are you talking about how they would learn about it, or is just?
Well, yeah, I suppose it's that kind of thing. That's the question I think that came in, was great. Somebody wants to work in a co-productive way, and yet where would they start? Because that could be for an organization, a group, or whatever, or it could be for an individual.
They could just come along, couldn't they? They could just come along and watch how the group goes, and they don't need to get involved, but it would grow. The interest would grow. I think that's one way.
Yeah, I think part of my role has been to reach out to people, and you guys have done the same thing as well. But I've often found it hard to explain what it is we do. Like if I say we're a group of people who just wants to work together, use lived experience to create change, and make sure that we collaborate with services and people designing and running those services. That can sometimes feel like a bit of an intimidating offer, or a too good to be true offer. The offer of a group can sometimes be a bit off-putting, but also if I say the word co-production as well, that's something as you all said in the film, had no idea what that actually meant at the start. So I think the best place to start is always having like a really key reason for wanting to work, make sure lived experience influences and shapes how we work. And hopefully if you're trying to bring people on board, they'll believe that and see that it's authentic as well. I think that's the most important thing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I wanted to say that it's quite important also to understand, the personalities, the character strengths, the weaknesses of, the individuals that do come together. So once you understand that, it's I think it makes it easier for people to gel and know who's coming with this, and then you're able to also support people's shortcomings and also understand what stages they are in, recovery, so that, you can be accommodating and supportive of that along the way. So just understanding the people you're working with and the stage of recovery there are to support it and get the best outcome for co-production.
And another question that's just come in that might relate to this about how people get involved is about diversity and equity. How do we make the co-production process equitable for everyone to be involved and engaged with?
So do you mean how can everyone have the opportunity to be involved?
Yeah, and how do you make sure that that people aren't discriminated against, so there aren't barriers, and all kinds of things like that?
Yeah, I think that's something we have talked about, like the potential barriers for people. Is the way we're working suitable and appropriate for everybody? And maybe it touched on a little bit in the film.
Maybe not everybody. It'll grow on you. It's just certainly grew on me. I come out of my shell completely, and I love watching everybody else come out of their shell. But and then you can spot people that it's not going to go anywhere because it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and sorry, Henrik, you go.
No, I think, and I'll just repeat what I said before. The key is really to be open-minded on the subject that you're going to discuss, but also open-minded about the people you're going to discuss it with, so it's about inclusion, and that's really important because everyone is valuable, everyone has a valid opinion, and if you are open-minded and you are ready to listen and to discuss, not in a defensive way but in an open way, then that's what co-production is all about. It's productive then. It's a positive thing. Yeah. I think. Go ahead.
Henrik, I agree with you. Inclusion and accessibility is very key. Everyone is ready to work in this style and manner, but again, understanding people, you're dealing with, because the whole point of co-production is, not to block anyone or tell anyone that they're not ready or whatnot. But again, just work with the individuals. They will tell you how they can fit in or what they're comfortable doing. And as Russen, one of our co-producers, I'm not sure he's here today, he's always saying, at the end of the day, we are just representatives. It cannot be anything, debarring anybody. So yeah, just honesty, openness, and be accommodating of people's learning styles and where they're at.
And it doesn't always have to be, sorry, I'll jump in. It doesn't always have to be a group either. Like, we've created a group that's worked, but part of my role as supporting people to come together and being, I guess, the facilitator is I sometimes do go out and meet people who just don't want to be in a group, or it's just not going to work out, or for whatever reason, because every week is so different in their lives and what they're going through. Can't commit to that regular sort of process and some of the things we've been working on. So we've designed some self-advocacy tools, and that has required people to sort of be there every week and influence and contribute. And because we at FLIC, we're not going to do it unless it's got the input of the group and of lived experience. So it does require a lot of flexibility. And so I've gone out and met people, I guess.
Okay. Thank you, Bex. I suppose one key question that's come in, I think you made reference, Bex, in the presentation you're doing about trauma-informed practice, and one of the questions that's come in, and this can be for all of you to think about, was about how does trauma-informed practice fit with co-production, and does it fit at all? The question. So.
I'm happy to start this one and then can go unless you want to jump in.
Well, we're doing trauma informed as well, so we're co-producing that as well. So that's always in the same. Yeah. It's always there.
Yeah, I think the two things are one and the same. I don't think you can be trauma informed without doing co-production, and doing co-production also requires you to be trauma informed. So offering people different ways of getting involved, so choice, restoring power, being flexible, understanding people. As a group, we all bring really different and have different needs, and those have to be understood for the group to work. And that is part of what being trauma informed is understanding people and just being curious about what we can do to make adjustments and accommodate each other. So yeah, I think the two are one and the same, but feel free to disagree. Anyone in the group?
No.
That's a loud no there, Bex.
There's no. We go on, Lawrence. Yeah.
I was going to say, I know I said this in the video, but I keep saying it's what made me thrive was that nobody's perfect, and it's okay to make mistakes. So you don't make any, because you have that safety net. It just makes you carry on, because if I make a mistake, look, I'm not perfect. Never mind, just carry on. But it's just brilliant that way.
You know what? I agree with you, Bex. Actually, I think they're two and one in the same thing. They're very much linked in the sense that we kind of have to be trauma informed to people, and we're dealing with people in the work that we do, and also about everyone coming from varying backgrounds. So you might have gone through a particular trauma, gone through something else that you're not aware of. So just being informed and being educated in that, the work that we do, and just again with that group dynamics and getting a group together, you're more understanding, and that would yield results. It all comes down to understanding, I think.
Yeah, I would like to say, one simple way I say about trauma informed is just to simply talk to people the way you would like to be talked to. It's so easy, very easy guideline.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Paula. Another question is about, I suppose, has been about working with other professionals, working with professionals and their training and development through the process as well? I'm not necessarily talking about BECS here, because obviously you're working with BECS, but what have you found about, I suppose, professionals, whether they be commissioners or others involved in other kinds of services, and how have they developed and evolved, I suppose, as well as you shared with us how you all have. But just wondering if there was anything, any insight you might have into that.
That's a great question.
I think again, it comes back to this being open-minded, but they, and also open to changing the system of the way that each service works, because some can be very, very set in stone. And their sort of organizational structure is such, and the way that they report to people is such, and the way that they think to people is such. So, it takes a degree of adjustment, if you like, to get into the mindset of co-production. And I think some services have a harder time with that than other services. Certainly larger services do. Yeah,
I think some services have been actually quite accommodating in the sense that I think it was Lawrence, you said in the video about essentially why did they want us on board, it being our lived experience essentially being the key to that, and I think they see the value in that, and so they kind of adapt to to our what we're trying to embark on, and in turn it just makes everybody easier. Yeah,
it was an incredible learning journey on both sides, both people, commissioners learning from each other and unlearning as well.
And I suppose a follow-up to that then is that, were there any sort of hard parts? Were there any points where you disagreed with each other? Sorry, I saw that smile there, Bex. Paula, do you think there were sort of times when you sort of disagreed with each other, or you had challenges around?
Absolutely. I think it would be disingenuous if we said otherwise, but again, I was asking Bex, and I think it was quite strategic to have, a workshop on decision making, which is quite key. But ultimately, as long as one is honest and genuine, this is life. You're not going to win in every given situation on every given thing. So just as long as there's a consensus and it's all working towards the shared purpose we have, then it's all good.
I agree.
Yeah.
There's just one quick question. Somebody's just asked, sorry, I'm bearing in mind we are getting lots of questions in, and I want to thank colleagues behind the scenes, Inna and Katie, for sharing all the questions. But any questions we don't get to answer, I've been promised that SHP colleagues will deal with them some way, because we know Bex is about to depart. But it was how somebody's asked a really, I suppose, pertinent question about, if you were running an outreach service, how would you, have you got any guidance you could give them, or support ideas about how they might be able to run that outreach service if they wanted to do it in a co-productive way?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, that is I think that's the thing with co-production, is there's not always an answer. So that's a really annoying answer to give, but sometimes it's just about giving things a try. So
where there's a will, there's a way.
Where there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, if yeah, exactly. And if that outreach service wants to do things in a way that is shaped by the people that they're supporting, then
at least try everything once.
Yeah, then the rest will follow. But it has to be sort of a dedicated effort to being like, right, we're gonna just change up everything we might be doing, or one part of that outreach service, and just see what the people we're supporting want to try and influence. But it all starts with a conversation, I think, as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Always ask, always talk about it.
If an outreach service likes the idea of co-production, wants to try it out, wants to embrace it, let's say, as Beck said, it will start with a conversation, and that conversation, it could be a group of people, it could be two people, whatever, and that will naturally grow. Yeah, and it will then grow into the, you'll discuss the sort of key points, what needs fixing, what are the problem pressure points, that are, all that kind of thing. And it will naturally become, you'll sort of come to solutions along the way. You'll try things out. No, that doesn't work. Yes, that works. And that's how you form. Yeah. Okay. And
I think,
sorry, follow, go on.
Oh yeah, no. Lawrence is always saying, problems always arrive. It's a problem solving endeavor, and so one has to just continue to involve and solve problems. But I just want to stress that it's key not to exclude anyone, be it they being street homeless, because we just have to find a way to facilitate and channel that, which I don't know, but it's just key not to exclude anyone in co-production.
In fact, it's better to include, because the more sort of varied experience and opinions and all that kind of stuff you get, the better it is.
I'm going to have to interject here. So this is the final question, because my timekeepers in the background are warning me that the webinar is only an hour long, and I'm sure we could go on and on. But the final question, then, we are aware that the Fulfilling Lives in Camden and Islington program is coming to an end, with Bex moving on as well. And so what next, I suppose, for you as co-producers and, you as individuals? So, Fola, would you like to start? This is the final question, everybody.
Sure. Me myself, I at the minute, I'm a peer mentor with SHP, so I do enjoy doing that, working at the London Irish Centre, Margaret Centre, supporting workshops. So I'll continue to do that, and just continue to do that. And I think the door left open to carry on co-production work, because it doesn't actually stop with people. It's just continued, and it's just the beginning, actually. So yeah, I'm happy to continue work with the FLIC staff, and
I mean, I think we got some follow-on opportunities that we're going to work together on, with Camden and some, I think, some newer services and some other services that want to try it out. So we are going to continue, mainly as a group and I think individuals, but continuing with co-production, definitely. It's the way to go forward, 100%.
Rob, Lawrence?
Yeah, same here, carry on. We've got some things there like co-production. We ain't going to end here. We want to carry on doing it, and we want to see it grow and everyone get involved. I mean, I'm a peer mentor for Camden, drug and alcohol service, and also work a bit with the criminal justice system now. I'm going to be so, but it's so good co-production. So we want to carry it on, and we will be getting together to carry on discussing it and that.
Yes, likewise, I'll be doing the exact same things, working with CGL, criminal justice system. We've got loads of stuff. I was saying to him this morning, I've got so many meetings next week. It's just co-production. I've only just started, really. I'd say I've only started because I haven't got anywhere yet. That's what I'm saying. I can't stop. It's been so enjoyable.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And listen, thank you all very much. I think it's been brilliant. We've presented today, and the work. And the comments that are coming in are really, really positive. I think everyone's really enjoyed the webinar. I just want to take 30 seconds to do a very quick thank you to Bex. As I said, I work in the Participation and Partnership team here at Camden Council, and Bex has worked on the Camden co-production and has been the lead, I'd say, has been and taken a real leading role and shared her experience, knowledge and skills and expertise in co-production to help us establish that. And of course, it works very well with how we work in Camden, particularly in our team, and of course across the wider council, about working in a shared endeavour way. And it's been great that Bex, coming from a voluntary and community sector background, has actually led our co-production. And I just want to wish Bex, all the best moving on, and for your next post that you're taking up, Bex. So thank you very much on our behalf as well. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, she's been the fuel in our drive.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
She's great. Great.
Thank you, Bex.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I've seen a lot of comments in the chat box that people want to reach out to you guys and work with you and link up. So yeah, you are all a super well-informed, committed and inspiring group of people. So the work doesn't stop here. And
No.
if you do want to reach out, FLIC don't close until the end of May. So please get in touch. And I'm just going to share my screen with some contacts if there are things you would like to contact us about as well. But yeah, thank you so much for coming. And yeah, good luck with all your co-production endeavors and projects.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.